What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way. I realize that I'm a little off when it comes to posting again. I'm really just gonna try and stop making promises that I can't keep before, actually just kind of doing the thing. So, regardless, I'm back. And I feel like the more heinous thing really is that I not necessarily have been slacking on videos and art and basically every other aspect of human life, but also that I haven't been as hype as I could be for the new Pokemon games. Kinda because they just jumped out at me in the middle of nowhere, and it was like suddenly like, oh hey, yeah, there's a Gen 9, so I guess that's a thing. And I guess been catching up on that. I guess not much else has come out about it. It just feels like we just got Legends, but at the same time, I suppose that Legends, like a lot of the base models and stuff like that seem to be in these new games, Scarlet and Violet, so I'm interested in that. I have come to love Quaxley. I do love Duck. I do, as a water starter main. I was especially like kind of weirded out by him for a second, but now I love him and his little hat, so I love Duck. But with that on mind, I feel like because I've been like kind of thinking about Pokemon in the background, I had this weird dream the other night where there was this huge up, and it was like genuinely like terrifying. This isn't even necessarily like something that I would want. So it was like it was kind of an MMO aspect, so I guess that was kind of fun. But then certain Pokemon would just like suddenly become stretched and like giant abominations that could like walk across the whole map in a second. I remember one in particular was this just terrifying like long Mr. Mime that it had like long stretchy legs, and it basically looked like a person for a second. I think that like the weird stretched out like Palkia with the legs was was the one that freaked me out. Maybe drove that sort of impression on me. But there was also in this again dream update, there was this weird new Eeveelution. It seemed to be some form of like green, maybe flying type, but it was a lot more feline than a lot of like the other, I guess, Eeveelutions almost. It looked kind of like a cat, and it had this like masquerade sort of like swirl on it, and it looked kind of like an owl, like a horny owl. And so I drew a picture of that the other day, and it reminded me of the fact that I had started a list of Fakemon Eeveelutions, that this is something that I wanted to continue doing, and so I figured that I would finally jump back into it. I didn't want to draw the long Mr. Mime. I feared that giving him form would make him somehow come to life, so you can make your own interpretations of that giant Mr. Mime, but here's that, Eeveelution, the weird masquerade flying type one. So anyways, that overall is what kickstarted me to get back into creating my Eeveelutions. And this time, unlike last time where I forgot like half of the Pokemon types, I decided to go in and basically just find like a little like pre-made map, I guess, or list of all the types. And I even assigned like their pre-existing Eeveelutions to it. I call it my Lutions master list. So, like I said, I won't forget all of the types again. And I noticed that of like the 18 types, there are 8 Eeveelutions. So it's not even like half, right? Which kind of bothers me that they added in a whole new type, and we didn't even get, the whole half that they made. If they just made another Eeveelution, we'd have half. But they made an Eeveelution for the new type, so it's not equal anymore. We are entering Gen 9, so maybe like there's sort of a catch-up thing going on, although I did talk with my brother about it, who's basically like the only one that I talk about Pokemon with. He's the one that I kind of mutually scream with when new things come out, and he mentioned that a lot of the Eeveelutions that exist now are more of the special attacker types, and they seem to all be covered, so it's likely possible that with that might be the end of the evolution line. Like, I guess maybe, I mean, dragon would still be cool. I thought dragon was more of a special attacker, but I'm not that great when it comes to like the fighting meta of Pokemon. So, that aside, we are fantasizing here. We're making fake mon that don't even exist, so it doesn't really matter. So with that, I decided that after my initial additions to my master list, which were flying and fighting in Avion and Meleon, I decided that the next best duo to go for would be Steel and Dragon. I figured that Steel would be a good counter to Sylveon, probably a good couple other types. It has, I think, a lot of like resistances and is strong against a lot of things. Meanwhile, Dragon is resistant to what seems to be almost like all the elemental types, like fire, water, and grass and stuff like that. It is only like explicitly weak to Fairy and itself. Although I guess I never really noticed this, that Dragon is only really strong against itself. So I guess the benefit for it there though is that it just doesn't have any weaknesses beside itself and Fairy. When it came to getting into the designs for these characters, I kind of hopped right in onto the Steel type because like how do you design a mono steel type? Like there seems to be some miscommunication as to what that really looks like. Most of the time they're just like purely metal, which I guess works, but not really for like an evolution. But I started initially conceptualizing like a robot. I thought it might be funny to either make it look like, you know, like one of those old-fashioned robot dogs, or even like MIT's Spot. But I realized that would probably be this huge design leap, which would make it look a little bit way less like an Eevee than I already knew that it was probably going to seem like, because so far my Eeveeloutions haven't been the best in terms of looking like the rest of the Eeveeloutions. Also, I know a lot of people are actually pretty scared of Spot, so I don't think that would be a good direction to go into. And then I proceeded to play around with kind of an armored design, so sort of like a knight or a samurai. Initially I thought that might be fun to use like a mongoose with, kind of a la Riki Tiki Tavi. Did anyone watch that as like a movie as a kid? I remember that was like the AV Club TV roll-in sort of situation. I know it was a book. My mom mentioned that she had a version of that book and it still had the what was supposed to be intended as a Buddhist symbol on it, but you know, became the swastika on the edges of the spine, like it was an old antique version of the book that she actually initially had. Or was it the Jungle Book? They're by the same writer, so it was one of those two. But while I was designing it, I started giving it these big claws, like blades, which I figured would be like a good, you know, addition for a steel type. That's usually how I would imagine them, being some sort of like sword-based creature, right? But then I realized, like, looking at this initial design, who has big metal claws and is a mutant? Wolverine. So I looked up the animals, making sure actually to type in Wolverine animal, like those two keywords together, just so I wouldn't get a face full of, you know, oh god, what's his name? I had it in my brain the other day. A face full of, oh my god, Hugh Jackman. So I wouldn't get a face full of Hugh Jackman and his shorter comic book counterpart. And like it works, I think, as well with the animals Wolverines, because they're adorable. You know, they've got these cute little faces when they're not like they are ferocious. they look and probably act like someone shrunk a bear and then forgot their paws and claws. When it came to the sketch stage of this, I also decided to give it a set of massive teeth, which is a good point for later. But after I finished with this sketch, I decided to start conceptualizing the dragon type, which was actually a little bit more vexing to me, because this felt like it could be a bit more of it had to be like some sort of staple, right? Because it's dragon type, and dragons are usually some form of like cool usually kind of metagame types that people like to play with and stuff like that. And I decided to kind of go for a bit more of a streamlined design as opposed to the kind of fluffy way that I went about the steel type, and maybe try and make it look a little bit more like an actual evolution. But I also took the kind of masquerade concept that I had from the dragon, or the evolution that I saw in my dream, and gave it kind of like a Cubone style, like dragon shaped helmet, and it has these like mean eyes behind it. So the rest of it kind of looks sleek, and then its head really just looks like a dragon's skull. And in this case, I feel like I came around to a design that I liked much quicker. I did something that I kind of hate here. I went in and clipped the wings. I don't like it when the membrane of the wing doesn't attach to the body, but I understand that it's more effective for a more stylized design, and it's very common among Pokemon. And like, whether or not these look like Eeveeloutions is still on the table, but I at least wanted these to look like Pokemon. So I did the thing that I kind of hate to see on any other type of dragon, and gave him kind of a slim base to the wing. And it turned into a very much like, this is your sketch before and during warming up, and this is your sketch after warming up moment, because it felt like the initial sketch for the steel type was just a lot rougher than the one that I made. It just came out a lot easier. It seemed like it was much more flowy and actually came into one design. And looking back, I probably still should have thumbnailed a few more designs for the dragon type. Like, it's definitely cool, but I feel like I maybe could have come up with something a bit more Eeveelution-like if I took that time, but I was particularly happy with this design, so I just decided to go for it. So before I went in with any lines or something like that, I did brainstorm some names. So I basically went online and looked up the sources for translations to steel and dragon, and I tried so hard to find a cool name that was a synonym for dragons, for the dragon type, because I knew that Drakeon and Draceon were already pretty simple evolution names, but I tried Wormeon, I tried Wyveron, Beastion, and none of them seemed to fit, so I just kind of kept Drakeon. Is kind of a staple among everyone who makes evolution interpretations, so, and I think that's for good reason. Now when it came to the steel type Pokemon, I wound up liking the use of the word saber for two reasons, obviously, because a saber is, a type of blade, but it also kind of looked like it was a saber-toothed cat sort of hybrid, because it just had those giant teeth. So I think that really worked out in my favor. So after I got the lines in, I played around with some coloring, and I decided, initially I was going to try and see if maybe like a yellow sort of design on Saberon would be cool. Would it be Saberon or Sabreon or Sabereon? I'm sure everyone would pronounce it differently if it came out like that. But for Saberon, which is what I named the steel type, I initially, like I said, wanted to go for maybe almost like a black and yellow design to further accentuate that X-Men reference, but I decided kind of against it because, or maybe I guess even blue and yellow. It's kind of X-Men-y, isn't it? I decided against it because Umbreon really has some yellow markings. So I went for kind of more of an orange theme and kept in sort of a dark fur color on the whole thing. When it came to Drakeon, I decided to kind of just color it in what felt like the most traditional dragon colors to me. So a lot of the Pokemon dragon types, especially I think full dragon types, tend to have that kind of grayish blue tone to them, along with some reds. Really the whole vibe of the dragon type seems to be some sort of mixture between a western and eastern sort of dragon, because he's got, the big horns and stuff like that, the big claws and the wings, but the wings don't seem very effective, and it's kind of flowy. It's kind of a long design. And at that, I think that probably going to be wrapping up the designs here shortly. I think that the overall designs I do like. I would say that they probably don't look as much like Eeveeloutions as they probably should be. There's something kind of masculine about them that isn't really in a lot of the Eeveeloutions. Like, you can maybe say that like Jolteon and Umbreon have a little bit of like spikiness going on, you know, a little bit more like coolness. But overall, all of the Eeveeloutions are pretty cute or cutesy, you know. So I think that it kind of messed with the whole vibe of the Eevee design, and then this like big fluffy design, and then this kind of like mean looking dragon skull thing, you know. Maybe Drakeon without its like skull dragon mask would look a little bit more like what they would probably go for a dragon evolution, just a bit more streamlined and sleek. But yeah, I wanted to try something different. I still do really like these designs, you know. I guess that Meleon and Avion aren't necessarily that Eevee either, you know. So I think that those are just going to be my own takes on them, and I actually really liked how they turned out. So anyway, here is the updated Lucian master list, if you will. Which types, for one, which of my Fakemon is your favorite, or really just any of the Eeveeloutions of this or of the 4 that I've made so far? And what duo or even like trio? I feel like there should be at least one where I do 3, maybe like Poison, Ghost, and Bug or something like that. Give Espeon something to worry about. But yeah, regardless, this is going to be quite the project still. So let me know what you think overall, I suppose. And at that, I think I will see y'all next time, which will hopefully be sooner rather than later this time.